Thank you, Chuck. I was worried that 9 a.m. this morning you guys would be asleep, but I think Chuck did a pretty good job of waking everybody up with those videos. So fantastic. Thank you for that. We're here to talk about AI and humans. And first, before we do that, I'd like to have my panel introduce themselves and give you a little bit background about what they do and why they're here. So let's start with Lee.
Hi, I'm Lee Christie. I'm from Isobar. I run the Now Lab for North and South America. I'm responsible for the research output of 5 different research labs, and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Christopher Neff. I'm with the community down in Miami, and I'm heading up an innovation division down there. Recently moved over from Los Angeles.
Hi, I'm Keith Pine. I'm Chief Operating Officer of Organic. I'm also the co-founder of Synthetic, which is our division dedicated to cognitive technology.
Hello, my name is Alexander Ray. I'm the Creative Technology Officer at DDB New York. That's like a CTO, but in the creative department.
Thanks, Alexander. All right, just to start off this morning, Chuck mentioned humans, right? Humans is the focal point of this panel. And how many humans out here, including the panel, have interacted with artificial intelligence recently that you're aware of? A lot of hands out there, a lot of hands out there. Probably most of you are interacting with it more than you're aware of because you really don't know what artificial intelligence is. So let's start off by just defining artificial intelligence. I'm going to throw this question out to the panel here. How do you guys define artificial intelligence within your agency and with your clients?
I'll take that one.
Go ahead, Keith.
For us, the way that we actually think of it a little bit of a broader lens to it where it's more about cognitive technology, which is the ultimate wrapper kind of around everything. And for us, it's really systems and machines that can ingest data in a variety of forms, interpret that, understand that, make an action, and then create a continual loop of improvement and learning and getting better and better each time.
Excellent. Lee, you're shaking your head in agreement.
Yeah, that's pretty dang close to what we have. I mean, we also categorize general AI and narrow AI, mainly because we want to manage client expectations. Of course, narrow AI is a domain-specific set of operations and learnings that allow a machine to optimize for a specific outcome. So just to add to your definition.
Okay, and before we get into some of the harder questions, just an easy softball question. It used to be, big data. Right now, the question is AI the new black? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the dominant trend since mobile.
Excellent, excellent. All right. But when you're approaching AI from an agency perspective, and as a marketer, whether you're involved in the creative side of the business, technology side of the business, the account service, how are you prioritizing the use of AI? Are you looking at the brand? Are you looking at the consumer? Are you looking at the technology? Where does this all fit, and the creative as well? And where does this all fit in your process? And how do you approach solutions? Are the solutions something that comes first, or are they more of an afterthought based on the overall problem that needs to be addressed?
I'll take this one if I can. So I would say that we traditionally would attack it from the consumer perspective. I think that's kind of the better place to start, and that's most of the work that I've done in the AI space is we really think about, okay, like who is our end user, who is our target, and how might we affect or interact with them on a daily basis in an unexpected way. And then we kind of work backwards a little bit. On the flip side of it, it is kind of nice to look at the technology and say, okay, there's something that's groundbreaking in the AI space. Maybe we can apply that to machine learning in that way, and then kind of back it into, okay, we know our consumer, we understand our target. Now we're using this new tool. How can we then show that to our target in real time in a practical sense? And we kind of work backwards. So I think we started more with the consumer, but now I think tech, given that AI is more popular and tech is evolving so fast, kind of going more to that side.
You guys all agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think now people are looking at AI commonly as in just kind of these one-off tactics of hey, how can I do something with AI? But that's really not the way to approach it. In my opinion, I think very similar to what Chris is saying. It's about looking at kind of solving problems from a consumer and a user perspective, but those problems can be solved better with an underpinning of cognitive technology underneath it to do things faster or to kind of see things that people couldn't see or provide really natural and personalized interactions.
Okay, great. So let's bring up some examples. You guys are all experts in the field.
Thank you.
And I think that everyone in the audience would love to hear some stories, examples of what you've done recently for your clients in the AI space, and what was the problem and what was the solution. And let's just start with Alexander, and then come back this way, and then we'll jump into a little bit more of the tactical elements.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have any real-world examples yet. Should I leave? Can I stay?
And why is that?
Education is what we're trying to do right now. We have some fantastic clients, and right now the media buys, the solutions to the problems that they think they have are being solved by what they understand. So in my time at DDB, which is just about a year, we've been working with our clients, educating them on the possibilities with AI and AR, VR, and all the other headline clickable pieces of content that you read about every single day. So I'm still at the education side, trying to sell through some stuff, and check in with me a year from now, 6 months from now. I think there'll be some great, maybe some dynamic video opportunities that we're going to be selling through to some of our clients. But right now, a lot of my role, especially in the AI space, is walking our clients through this new territory, because they read the headlines just like everybody else. So my job is to make them understand and hopefully get them to purchase a campaign that's powered by some sort of deep learning or neural network.
Okay, great. Thanks. Keith?
We've been working in the space for a while. In previous years, it's been more around kind of natural language processing, voice assistants, that sort of thing. More recently, our applications of cognitive technology apply towards kind of, we're working on an internal tool right now to extract insight using image recognition technology by combing people's Instagram feeds to kind of find a deeper and truer meaning of kind of who people are, and more than just kind of some general sentiment pieces of it. But the majority of the work that we're doing right now is actually in the retail space, where, not to get too specific, but it's about searching in a different way, where I could take a picture of a room and say, hey, I like the way that my friend's couch looks, and then I can upload that picture and then be populated with results that are similar like that, because it's just kind of a more natural way that people are searching things. So we're doing some work on that right now for a major retail client.
Excellent. Thanks, Keith. Christopher?
So I think two main areas that I've focused on with AI and how we've applied it, and one I think is absolutely going to boom more, is the application of like computer vision using augmented reality, using the mobile phone. So we've done creation of like glyphs and logos, and we've put those out in the world so that using your phone you can take a photo of that. We can scan that over browser, we can process it however we want, and then we can deliver information, whether that's content, whether that's location-specific information. But we've trained a model to understand that this glyph or this logo equals whatever output we want. And we've done that in a lot of below-the-line work. We did it most recently for Chevy, and we put little glyphs on the car brochure to refresh it, because the car brochure would just kind of get thrown wayside. We wanted to give it a bit of a tech facelift, so by putting those little markers on that brochure and allowing somebody to activate it via their phone, we're able to deliver really like pointed content within the dealership from the click of the camera. So that's one aspect of the application of it, but I think where it's going, which I'm more excited about, using like Amazon recognition or using cloud vision, but the idea of in real time I can just scan using my phone, and we can cloud compute, process, and deliver information in real time to that user. So it's in that application that we're kind of endless. I think in terms of limits, like I get very excited about it, mixed reality, augmented reality, but I think computer vision is kind of the key to how we can all use it in a big way.
Go ahead, Lee.
So I should start out by saying that that I'm in sort of a similar boat in the sense that every single client we have is asking for some form of AI dust you can sprinkle on their project, and automatically solves all problems. So the demand is huge, obviously, and the potential for the solutions are huge as well. But right at this stage, the vast majority of projects that we're working on are in the sort of 1 to 2 years out phase. But the thing that I'll tell you, this is probably the most interesting part. This is the thing that almost everyone we're talking to is asking for, and that is really easy and quick affinity models. So you have a CRM, you know the customer, you have a bunch of customer data, and you want to be able to predict ahead of time what that customer wants. AI is like perfect for that. If you have a series of very simple variables that can be optimized for, and you have the data that you can train up the model with, and so this is like the intention of what a lot of AI platforms are for. So this is why so many third parties have emerged offering their sort of AI services, is for this exact reason, so that agencies such as Isobar can simply use that set of machine learning algorithms, take a CRM, take all that data, run it through the algorithm, and it'll spit out sort of a model, if you will, for what the consumer wants.
So I'm gonna elaborate on that a bit, Lee. You mentioned the word data quite a bit, and also stemming from Alexander's point on
new
education.
gold.
And even though we've moved past big data and into AI as the new black, do you guys believe that clients have enough data or access to data to really be successful in AI? And how does data and AI interplay with one another to achieve success?
There's no lack of data. They have the data. The problem is how do you handle it? How do you put it, how do you aim the fire hose in the right direction?
Yeah, I think the major misunderstanding that a lot of clients have is how much effort it takes to train these systems, to interpret the data, and to think about it in the way that you want, just because you have, just an ocean of, media data, first-party data, whatever. Just kind of plugging that into an API doesn't automatically, spit out smart stuff. It takes a lot of effort to kind of get it to, kind of corral it and operate the way that you want it to think.
Well, I mean, we have still a lot of humans that are involved in a lot of this. We've got
Absolutely.
signals intelligence and human intelligence, and we have all the signals, more signals than we need. And we're working on DDB North America. We're working on how to better monitor and read the zeitgeist tea leaves to find those little nuggets of opportunity. There's a lot of humans involved still. I don't know if and when there will be the Whopper from War Games that's just going to spit out a little piece of paper that says, this is the thing you need to do. It's still going to take a lot of people.
I think the key point, first off, with that, I think data cleaning, and everybody has a ton of data, and certainly there's the top dogs that have the most data, but a lot of data is inconsistent. It needs to be cleaned. It needs to be organized, because in dealing with data and trying to train AI models, right away that if your data is lacks the substance that it needs, you'll see it. So you have to be very patient. Because there's so much trial and error to it. You look at the first iteration or the prototype and anything that you're attempting to build using these brains, and it gives you garbage basically. And it's like, okay, it's garbage in, garbage out, but even positive information in and good data still can yield garbage. So you still have to really trial and error and test and be patient with it. But go back to your data and use different sources and organize that, clean that, maybe synthesize new data and kind of fill your gaps. But yeah, I think data is everything for AI, to be honest.
Okay, great. So we're all in agreement that the data is really the basis for a successful AI program. So if we level up from there and talk about what's tactically happening in the marketplace, you hear a lot from Facebook talking about their chatbots and banks and other e-commerce solutions using chatbots, whether it's for help or whether it's for actual transactions. And Alexander, you wrote a blog post recently that was a little interesting. It was entitled, "Are Chatbots Relevant for Your Brands?" Right? Can you talk about that and help us understand how you make decisions on whether to use chatbots or not?
Blah, chatbots. My biggest problem is that they're not, like if you go back to Facebook's mega conference, I guess a year ago now, F8, there was a lot of talk of AI and chatbots and Messenger and AI and Messenger, and then you fast forward a year, and then they kind of cooled out a little bit on the AI piece of it, and they're like, well, we really don't have all this neural network stuff all figured out. My biggest thing about chatbots is that they are decision tree, they're algorithms, especially the stuff in Messenger. There's not a lot of intelligence there. They're very great tools. There are now companies that make it easy for you to create Messenger, Facebook Messenger chatbots. But it's not intelligence. There's no learning there. There's a lack of empathy. You know, if you're going to create an intelligent system, there needs to be empathy, and you need to be able to connect to the individual that's having the conversation. So my position on that is we are not there yet, and chatbots are great tools, but so is text messaging. Chatbot just happens to be text messaging, but in Facebook Messenger.
All right.
There's this really cool international competition for chatbots. His name escapes me at the moment. It's called like the Lubner Prize or something like that. The reason why is pretty funny, actually. Do you guys remember that Microsoft chatbot where they started like teaching it like all this like racist stuff? So the reason pretty simple is that machine learning based chatbots are easily corrupted. Really weird emergent phenomena happen that humans just don't understand, and we don't really even want to understand. Sometimes it's really scary, and it reminds us of a life form, really. I mean, when you start getting these emergent behaviors in chatbots due to machine learning, the results are so freakish that we just assume it's a failure. But I've been using this. Has anybody tried using Replica? Anybody tried that app? I'd highly recommend trying it. It's probably one of the more advanced machine learning based chatbot apps out there. And for the first week, you'll be frustrated because it really doesn't do much of anything. But after about a week, it starts to do some pretty interesting stuff once it sort of learns how you use it. So if you want to get a little taste of the future, give that app a try. You'll be disappointed at it first, but if you stick with it, you'll start to see some pretty interesting stuff.
So the common word I heard there was humanity. And Christopher, one of the questions that you were thinking through as we got ready for this panel was, how do I inject more humanity into the AI process? So why don't you talk about how you're solving for that?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting aspect of AI right now. And I've always sat kind of in a storytelling space and creative marketing. And when I bring AI into a conversation, it kind of scares people, or it turns people off in a sense of like, well, I don't really know what to do with that. And there's this lack of humanity that kind of spreads from there. So in kind of learning that pretty early, I like to bring AI into our conversations as thinking about like another person in the whiteboarding session. It's a complement to human energy, to the creation of ideas, and maybe we use AI to build a simple tool that can change words to images. That might be something that's somewhat simple, but that can help us. It can help us concept. It can help us think by seeing versus reading. AI could be used for that. And again, that's not going to get us to an end product. But I think in creative marketing, whenever we've tried to use AI as an end product, I don't want to say it's failed, but we've had to pivot. We've ultimately got to a point where we like where we stand, but that's not going to be forward-facing. We can't put that out in the world, and it's that human touch that actually then makes that palatable to the end user. The brands actually say, okay, like we can put that into market. So knowing that, we bring that in very early, and we understand we're not replacing anybody. We're complementing this with AI, and it's going to help us think out of the box. And so far, it's been working.
Excellent, excellent. All right, I'm going to ask a specific question to Lee, and then a broader question to the group, and see if we can play off this theme for a minute. And Lee, when we talk about artificial intelligence and the major players out in the space, is there room for the little guy beyond Amazon and Google? Is there any hope?
Sure. Okay, so if we're talking about like TensorFlow and other machine learning platforms, I think it's pretty clear that like it's basically winner takes all. I mean, you might have an oligopoly of some kind, but there's not a lot of room for small players there. But in terms of people who actually know how to use these tools, yeah, the opportunities are endless. The democratization of machine learning tools will enable new consultancies and agencies that don't even exist today. So yeah, absolutely, there's room.
All right, excellent. So you mentioned TensorFlow, which is the second part of the question, and I want to open up to the group. How many people in the audience have heard of TensorFlow?
See a few hands there.
All right. Keith, Alexander, do you want to jump on this for a minute and talk about your experience and what we should know about TensorFlow and who's really behind it?
Well, it's Google. And TensorFlow is the way I've been explaining it is now a product that is now readily available for anyone to start developing with. I mean, Google is very great at offering up products for you to just sign up and start developing on. Well documented. It's born from the kind of the muscle inside of Google. When you search for banana and images of bananas come up, it's not metadata someone typed in. It's actual bananas in the images. It's the image recognition. We've been having some discussions with some media agencies that are using it for image sentiment analysis, cross-reference with some sort of social data, and it could be some interesting opportunities there. We are dipping our toe into that space right now. It looks like there's a lot of opportunity, but then again, there's also a lot of fear. To go back to a couple other earlier points, and what I mentioned at the top about education, that lack of control, even putting that, even saying, hey man, we're going to do a dynamic thing for your brand. We have an insurance company as a client. I could probably say with a lot of certainty that they'd be like, whoa, we're not going. There's nothing wild out there in the universe. Everything is going to be lockstep and approved.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to the question about room for the small guy to play, and that's what I really see. Is part of the power of TensorFlow is that it enables people to have access to experiment and to try different things on the backs of super brilliant people and a behemoth organization like Google, which is great because that's where I think the most interesting things are happening now is kind of these individuals or a couple of people getting together primarily in the academic space to just do an experiment for an experiment's sake, and sometimes that might not have applicability directly in the business world, but usually those things can spurn somebody else to say, oh, that would be cool if we kind of did it this way. So I think kind of platforms and open source information of that nature is critical to the proliferation of this technology and just getting more people to get their feet wet.
Okay, so Keith, following up on that, you play in the space a lot around cognitive technology. Can you kind of explain to everyone what that means and then how you're getting your clients involved in that?
Yeah, it's a bit about kind of how I described before, where it's just kind of a broader lens of creating machines and systems that ingest data in the form of images and text and all types of things to ingest and understand and make a decision and get better each and every time. And at Organic, it was a bit of a chicken or the egg thing where we had done a lot of work in this space, but we really wanted to up the ante. So we created a separate division dedicated to this called Synthetic, which is really around, kind of experimenting in this space without any real constraints of any kind. And, basically what we're doing is, we're coming up with ideas and experiments, and then we're bringing them to clients. And, either we're building and iterating on them, and sometimes we'll say, okay, we'll explore that later and doing some other things. But it's been really great for us because I think it helps kind of ground the clients to understand, okay, this is what this technology is all about, and this is how to use it. And I like to say, you learn more French in France than you do in French class. So when somebody's actually looking at something like, oh, cool, this is what you made, and this is kind of what that's all about, it gets more real to them, and they're able to say, okay, now I see how we could practically apply this to our website, or how we could, gain insights from our social channels.
Okay, great. Christopher, you're working a lot in the space around AI synthesis. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I will say I've played with AI synthesis, and I like what it can be more than what it is right now. But the thought of whether it's kind of two sides of it that we've experimented with, but one is more in the image creation side using something called GANs, but adversarial networks, and the idea that you can create just based on having a sense of information. So you have a brain or an ensemble of brains that understands essentially what something looks like, right? I think I understand what a cat looks like, and if I had to draw a cat, maybe I could create a cat. And if this AI system has seen enough images of a cat and understands the physical properties, it can create it from scratch. in theory, it does that, and GANs to a degree does work like that. But I love the thought of what that will mean and how that will kind of revolutionize VFX and stock imagery, the ability to kind of utilize assets. Because I always go back to how can I make things with it. And for me, the thought of synthesis from a visual standpoint, again, if I can bridge the gap and I don't have to go actually go purchase something or go shoot it, and I could theoretically create it from scratch using synthesizing it with AI, there's something special there. And then really quickly, the audio side of it, I think, is extremely important for us to keep an eye on as well, where the thought of being able to score something using AI, compose music from scratch, because AI is heard and understands chord progression and sounds, so it can theoretically create, whether it's mimicking voice or whether it's creating composition. I think synthetic AI as it relates to sound is going to be massive as well. So.
Okay, thank you very much. And Lee, when we're talking about using AI for creation, which has kind of been the theme of the last few questions, talk to us about virtual reality or mixed reality or augmented reality or X reality, and how is that interplaying with AI, and what's leading what?
Sure. So my good buddy Danny Lang over at Unity Technologies recently announced this really cool thing called Unity machine learning agents. They've actually been working on AI stuff for a long time, but this announcement sort of is sort of official coming out. So we actually, for behavioral analytics, we use virtual reality to sort of understand the consumer for various things like a grocery store, how someone interacts with the, how they walk through the store, how they interact with it. And you can actually model humans fairly accurately in 3D. So this doesn't require virtual reality, of course, but it is convenient when you're showing the client for them to be able to be in there with the user during playback. So that's probably the most obvious one, which we're really excited about. We have a thing called the VR analytics platform, which we use for this purpose. It's kind of like a VR chat room where the client, the host, and the playback of the customer are all in the same place at the same time.
Okay, Alexander, the big question, should creatives worry about AI?
Well, to play off your point about creating content on the fly, creating music on the fly, I think a lot of people in music licensing and SAG will probably get a little pissed off at that. I don't think right now we need to be concerned about, as creatives, concerned about AI. I've been saying recently that a artificial intelligence would not have come up with Fearless Girl, which I will assume most of you know, McCann's rather successful project. Look it up if you don't know about it. And it gave a lot of earned media to State Street, Capitol, which you barely know about because you only know about Fearless Girl. But my point being, I don't believe a program, an intelligent program, would have said, hey, the thing you need to do based on the zeitgeist and the pop culture and this moment in time that we are right now is to make this statue of a little girl and put it down in Wall Street in front of that bull. I don't believe, and I would love to be proven wrong, but I don't believe we as creatives, if we're looking to create stuff like that, these groundbreaking pop culture relevant things that talk about a brand in a way that brands don't get talked about, AI is not going to do that. AI can be very great at a lot of things, but I don't think we have to fear about it stealing the creative job for us that are creatives and coming up with these ideas for our clients.
So AI isn't quite there yet for creating. And actually, it's interesting because last night I was looking up jokes that were created by robots and computers and artificial intelligence. So maybe I thought I'd open up with a joke today. Couldn't find one. They don't exist. There aren't any good jokes yet written by computers. I mean, some of them are kind of crude, so I'm not going to bring them up. And a lot of them didn't make sense because they were using data and they weren't actually parsing the data and understanding the data in the way the humans, interpret data, whether it's the overall intent or whether it's the meaning or the emotions that go with the way we express ourselves with other human beings. So AI is not quite there yet with creative development, but the bigger question then coming from that is something that's been in the news, quite a bit over the past year. Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking, AI, we should worry. You've got Putin saying AI leader will rule the world. So you've got two different extremes there. Yes or no? Should we be afraid of AI, or should
Putin is talking about AI. Like, yes, we should be afraid of AI. I mean, he obviously knows that he's hitting the zeitgeist moment. He sees that opportunity to be like, I'm going to insert this into the headline right now because people are going to talk about it. He's not afraid of the media. He understands the media.
And let's be clear, we're talking about general AI, right? I mean, there's some people are afraid of narrow AI. If someone has access to the best algorithms, they could use narrow AI as an attack. One corporation could attack another, or one government could attack another. So yes, that's a problem. But the thing that, like, when Elon Musk talks about how AI could enslave us all, he's talking about general AI. He's talking about an AI that's basically more a super intelligence, as Nick Bostrom says. It's a global existential risk that we all are taking currently, whether we know it or not.
Yeah, I think, the way you describe it is exactly right. And the reality is we are many, many major advancements from getting to anything that even resembles that. But I think that the reality is in the world there's good guys and there's bad guys. And this technology is real, and we are at kind of like the beginning and the bottom of an S-curve where it seems like there's kind of some stuff happening but nothing material. But in the years to come, that's going to advance really rapidly. So now is the time to think about the rules and general best practices. So the good guys will have their hands on this, but so are the bad guys. But you want us to be able to design a world and to lay the foundation for future advancements that are positive to mankind and not detrimental.
So I think inevitably they're both right in a way, and I think just the way that AI is being used. So Musk is doing it primarily to kind of make us really feel the need for regulation, and I get that, and I think that's right. And I think
ironic.
Yeah, I know, right? But I think where he's wrong is that it's not AI that we necessarily should fear. It's when AI and artificial intelligence becomes artificial life, and it's that it's that transition that will occur when these are independent entities that can learn and can exist, and when they inevitably think that they don't need us anymore. But it's not artificial intelligence as we use it. It's this transition to artificial life, which will, I think, inevitably occur.
So the thing that comes up over and over again is that if AI is sufficiently advanced, we don't really. When we look at ants, we're really not that concerned about their sovereignty or whatever, right? So, like, if an AI is intelligent enough, the best we can kind of hope for is to be their house pets. And so this is, I think, the sort of inevitable outcome. And in that state where we're far outclassed, what we really need to ask ourselves is, what kind of world do we want? I mean, it's probably going to happen. We don't know how long it'll be, but and if it does, the closest thing I can think of as being a good outcome, which is very on point for this conversation, is for us to be intimately connected with AI, right? And this would involve vastly increasing the amount of bandwidth between our cerebral cortex and the machines that we work with every day. So some people call this wetware. Elon Musk, once again, has a company for this. It's called Neuralink. And this is one solution, is augmenting the human. It's not the human versus the machine. It's the augmented human versus the machine. And if we do our jobs right in terms of morals and ethics, then it's completely possible that we could align ourselves with the future of AI. This is why they call it the alignment problem. If we're even slightly misaligned with AI, then the hopes and desires and dreams of artificial intelligence will differ from that of ours, and we will have outcomes that we just don't want. Some people call this the control problem.
You guys agree?
Well, I would just like to know how AI can solve some problems in the world beyond, media problems and selling widgets. But that's a different panel.
But I think that's what's interesting, though, is that the way that I see things is that AI is a tool, and it's a tool that works in conjunction with humans to do things better and to make us better, and that is a positive thing. And with every advancement since the dawn of man, people's roles have changed, people's jobs have changed, and life has changed. And I think by embracing that, people and humanity will get a tailwind that will kind of push us forward. But if you resist it and are kind of worrying about it, nothing good will come from that.
So if we bring it back to the advertising funnel and think about artificial intelligence and where it fits and how we may want to approach it, I mean, you can think about reach, act, convert, engage, right, from a funnel perspective. And in the reach arena, the big AI plays currently are voice search, programmatic media buying, AI-generated content. In the act phase, it's about ad targeting, really, and predictive analytics. And convert, it's really dynamic pricing, web and app personalization, chatbots, retargeting. And in the engage phase, it's predictive customer service, one-on-one dynamic email. So within that funnel, guys, how do you suggest people in this room get their clients engaged in AI moving forward when they leave today? Where should they start?
I mean, personally, I don't get lost in how gigantic it is, right? Figure out kind of a place to start, a place to apply it. So I would look to solve a business problem that you have. It could be the tiniest problem that exists in your office to a slightly bigger problem that your client has or that you have as an organization. And just think about some different ways in to solve that problem where you might be able to use AI. So part of it, you need that education about the tools to understand what you might be able to utilize, but start small. Once you've tried to conquer that problem, then it'll teach you about how to use this, what works, what doesn't, and then you build from there.
Keith, you're shaking your head, yeah?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that once you kind of start to experiment and you start to do a little bit, the road becomes clear, kind of 5 feet ahead of you at a time. You say, oh, cool, then maybe we could do it in this space. So I don't really see it as necessarily something like, oh, you've got to look at how you're gaining customer insights. You have to go there first. Go anywhere. We're at the early stage, but I think the people that really kind of dive in first and kind of, to use a bad term, start to disrupt their own business by experimenting and trying some different things out, they're going to meet a lot of success. And it's going to happen quickly where those who don't are just going to be rendered irrelevant.
All right, I think we're going to open it up for some Q&A based on where we're at from a scheduling perspective. Any questions out there in the audience?
Yeah, I've got one. I know Lee mentioned the clients, the demand. I wonder if you can talk about the propensity of brands to spend right now. Like when brands come in and say, we want VR, then they see the price tag of immersive VR for the 9 people who have an HTC Vive. They kind of freak. What are they looking to spend on AI? Are they, when they get the price tag, do they get sticker shock?
You go for it.
From my experience so far, I mean, they're all asking for it, but they're not. I haven't seen them putting numbers on them, to put it simply. I mean, if it produces the results they want, you're looking at $1 million projects aren't out of the question at all. But the only place where I've really seen low hanging fruit there, once again, are these affinity models, like recommendation engines. This is where it's really a really obvious benefit, and they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, I think there's probably not an agency on earth where when they present a number, the client says, hey, that's a great price. I love that. But I think, what clients are hesitant to is they understand the value conceptually, but don't kind of see that what the results are, kind of in a real world practical solution. And it's tough for them to kind of put dollars behind that before they've seen that, which, kind of happens time and time again. Look at the internet as a whole. It's only until really the last 10 years, clients are like, oh yeah, this is the internet websites. These are things that we should have for their business, which is sad, but that's usually kind of the learning curve.
I think.
No, go for it.
I think the holy grail is a smart 360 campaign where a piece of it is a nice AI headline, but it might not. The whole campaign is not a AI campaign. Might be a couple of headlines for a couple of the trade rags, but maybe it's something that works with radio, because radio is still bigger than TV in a lot of markets. How do you tie in a deep learning application with radio for the millions of people driving cars every single day? not in New York City, but it's a huge thing. So I'm looking at it from that side. How can I bake this into really traditional behaviors? I think that could be a holy grail opportunity.
I think really quick, AI is not as expensive as you think to start playing with, but you have to think about it in a scrappy way. If you jump right to Watson, if you jump right to these paid services, you're going to spend more money to do stuff that you can do open source using your own machines on Linux, and you just need developers that understand Python and certain, how to write certain scripts. So I would say experiment there, and once you understand how to do it in a scrappy way, I've actually experienced a lack of sticker shock, to be completely honest, and people are somewhat surprised that, wow, you can do that for that price, if you do it that way. But then otherwise you'll get a bill from Watson, and it could be quite expensive. So you just have to be a little bit more careful about it.
Okay, other questions? And if you could state your name and where you're from, that'd be great.
It's David Cutler, Creative Chaos. Chris, you just started opening up the can of technology terminology, and I wondered if you guys would actually dig into that a little deeper, maybe more in relation to, yes, you have the platforms like the Watsons of the world, but do a little acronym dance for us if you guys can. Python and servers and developers. What are you guys using for this stuff? What will you be using?
So to start it out, you need a really strong GPU processor, really complex video card, so that you can compute. I recommend that you build your own machines to start with. I mean, certainly if you're going to have like a base, build PCs, put a really nice graphics card, have a render farm. It's almost like you're building a VFX studio, and that's what you would use for AI in my recommendation. But now everything is kind of going cloud. So I love TensorFlow with Linux because it's open source and it's free. But if you want something that's readily available and there's less of a learning curve, it's good to think about using TensorFlow, Amazon Recognition, IBM Watson, Cloud Vision, some of these services that are just so readily available. You pay as you go. Most developers can kind of pick these up, whereas the other set of tools that I like to play with, you need very specialized devs. Python is a back-end skill set that a developer would need to know. So that's your kind of your either or. If you don't necessarily have the specialists, go with the open source tools, pay a little bit more. You're going to find that they're easier to use. If you do have the specialists, build it all from scratch and see the magic that you can do that way.
Keep your eyes peeled for ASICs. The thing that I think that is going to change everything are these, very specific type of chips and computers that are intentionally built to run specific algorithms. So they're almost built to the algorithm, and they're far, far more efficient in terms of power usage. This is looking more and more likely. Households will eventually probably have ASICs built into their basements, in their servers.
Any further questions? Anyone?
One second.
Pennsylvania. Could you give us specific examples of iterative knowledge learning that you applied? I mean, you talk broadly, and in my own experience, I've seen AI that's been pretty pathetic. So I'm just interested in knowing, back end, are you talking about learning yourselves in order to create a campaign? You're talking about interacting with customers, buyers, some particulars.
Yeah, I could take this. The way that we've organized things in the synthetic group is in a true agile format that is designed for iteration. So I'll give you a very simple example just to understand, kind of how things can sort of have like a rudimentary idea and then, expand on top of that. So we're working on a chat experience for a client, and like you were saying before, it's very much at the base just kind of a decision tree logic. So that's kind of like Rev 1, right? And then what we've done after that is layered on top of that for Rev 2. That would be putting sentiment analysis wrapped around the entire thing. So then, it can understand a little bit more contextually what somebody is talking about, not only from a subject matter standpoint, but also from emotional and an attitudinal standpoint, and then developing responses to suit all of that. And then what we're working on for the next revolution after that is something where it's actually generating text on the fly, which is still a space that has a lot of water to be put through the pipes, but that's a simple example of kind of how you can kind of take something crude and kind of build on there. And I think this type of methodology plays better to the experiential world and less to the campaign world. Campaigns, are often about kind of garnering attention and kind of making a quick splash. But in the experience world of kind of websites and apps and e-com, that sort of thing, I think that's where you really have more of kind of a broader runway to kind of do a little, see how that works, figure out if you want to keep going or change that or pivot from that perspective.
It still sounds rule-based rather than...
Part of it is rule-based, but there's a layer on top of it that is cognitive in nature to understand what's happening. So there's kind of a layer of, okay, let's interpret this, and then the subsequent layer is more rule-based.
I mean, it's only 2017. I mean, we have some time to go to figure this stuff out. I mean, everybody was like, oh man, I really want that thing that's never been done, but please show me the case study that it worked. Yeah. So it's like we don't have the awesome case studies yet.
I'm going to use that the next time.
Go ahead.
All right.
Give me a little credit.
Alexander, Keith, Christopher, Lee, thank you for the panel this morning at 9 a.m. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. It's been a pleasure. Cheers.
Great job. Thank you, Jeff. James, you want to join me? Great opener.